And we are back again. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey guys.
How are you this Monday?
Early. Well, early. It's not that early, but it feels early.
It's all good. I've been up early as well. Kids to school, the usual Monday morning, but it's great. Oh, we're here.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm completely renovating my entry hall, and I haven't completed my office yet, as you can probably see, but I'll get to that at some point.
You should have taken our advice to don't buy something like that.
Yeah, like we talked about before. At least I'm not sure if it's viewable, but I finalized the third car at least, so I sort of prioritize my time, right? Oh, so
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, slow clap.
Awesome, good stuff. Well, we are here to talk to you about and present the latest updates on the Intune service release 24.05. And we are going to make a little bit, we're going to switch things up from now on. Now that we have Peter with us, we are going to try and sort of sort the different things into the different platforms that we're going to talk about. But the first one is going to be the sort of section of the general updates in Intune that sort of crosses over different platforms and the whole service itself. And one of those items, Matthias, is going to be about monitor device details actions. What's that?
Yeah, it's a lovely. It's not a new as such, but the new thing here is that you can now have the device delete actions in that view. So if you click into devices and then monitor, we talked about the new categories here as a part of the new UI. Now we have this very nice view and report of device actions, where we have this new possibility of looking into devices that has been deleted. So the view here is to be able to make it easier for your IT pros in your environment to actually see the operational tasks that you have been doing throughout a day or maybe the week, and just to filter out this. But I must say that I was a bit disappointed when I looked into it, because I actually deleted a device and I can't see that action in here. I see the clean Windows device, and that is there, of course. But just to prove my thing here is that if I go to the device administrator and to the audit logs, I can definitely show you that I deleted a device. You can see this is the delete managed device. And I indeed deleted a device, but I don't see it here in the device action. So I guess this is a glitch or something like that. I looked into the filters as well. Looked for delete. I can't see it. So I think maybe this went out a bit too quickly.
Could be. At least the report is kind of there, but it has been, right? So yeah, we've seen these things in the past, right?
And it would be a good addition, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure about how you guys are doing this, but what we do is basically just export all of it, the audit logs, and build our own reports based on that, so that we don't.
Totally
for these things, right? Even though if it's good from I would say perhaps small, medium business kind of perspective on an enterprise level, we need this. We needed this many years ago, which we have through the audit logs, right? So, but I think it's a good addition, at least extending the report capabilities.
And probably by exporting it, you get a lot more flexibility around the reports that you also want to create.
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, the export capabilities, they are great, and that's exactly why they're there. So, but for those people without that need, it's great that these reports is also getting some love sometimes. Hopefully, in the next video, we can let's say re-demo it, or it has appeared at that point. But yeah,
hopefully.
Absolutely. But we have some other stuff also on the general sort of section, which is you should at least be able to customize your sort of Intune Admin Center experience. But we had some drawbacks with that as well, or some hiccups with that as well, Matthias, right? What was that about?
Yeah, so your Intune Admin Center experience, so what is that definiteness? Well, I read into the What's New document and it said I could switch around and do stuff. And if we look into the dashboard, that's definitely something I've been able to do for a long time. I can clone, I can edit, I can do a lot of stuff. I don't think that's what they mean. I think what they mean is actually the home screen here. So you would be able, I'm not quite sure. But what it also says that it is rolling out. So it means it could not have reached my tenant yet. I've looked in a couple of tenants. I can't really see where this UI where you can switch around should actually land. But yeah, I think that's something we need to look into in the next video as well. But now it's in the What's New. We wanted to demo it, but maybe you out there who are looking at this will say, well, it's right here. Just go and customize it, and please write it in the comments so at least we can find it.
Exactly. If you've seen it, if you have it rolled out already, let us know what it's all about, because we're curious. Because we talked about this, right, in a few videos ago when this whole new sort of home screen experience was rebranded or redone, perhaps we should say. So we are interested to learn what that is all about. But that's about it from the sort of general Intune updates for this service release. Let's dig into what's related on Windows. And the first really big thing there is the new Autopilot device preparation functionality that has been released, right? Who wants to take on that? Who wants to call it something with a V in front of it?
I see
a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's not V2, it's not V1, whatever. It's called device preparation. Let's not call it V1. Let's call it V2." I don't know. Yeah, to me, it's another sort of template with another completely different flow, with a new experience, new functionality. Some people may want to sort of not reference that as a version 2 of something, but the key thing here is that it's a new experience, in my opinion, and the sort of existing functionality will continue to exist. And who knows, hopefully in the future, they sort of merge these two experiences together.
Yeah, but
yes,
let's be honest, right? Let's be honest. The current existing one is quite a work when you need to add this device into to the Autopilot table. You need to export the data. You need to put it in here. You need to put a group tag on it if you have multiple configurations you would like to assign to your device, and so on. And then you have to wait for it to actually assign it. You need it to have some kind of dynamic Entra ID group to gather the devices and make sure that updated. And then we have a up to 24 hours of SLA time on that dynamic group to actually update and so forth. So a lot of building bricks that had to be put into the Lego of building a device modern. So this Autopilot table and this way of provisioning is no longer going into the new device preparation. And that's one of the big changes. For the new experience kind of thing, we find it still under the enrollment, and I think most tenants will have it now. There's been a lot of fuss on this last couple of weeks now, and also videos and blogs demoing how this is set up and how it works. So what is there to say? I mean, all the big names in the Autopilot world has already been there. Joost, Rudy, Michael Niehaus, Dean Ellaby, and also Get Rubik's have done a lot of demos on this. But I just quickly want to take you through how the provisioning of this is actually working.
I just wanted to say, Matthias, that's a great list for you to be in.
Thank you, Peter. But I wouldn't categorize me in that list. I am, however, building a big blog on the Autopilot existing version. I hope I'm not too late to the game, but I wanted to provide some more info. What is actually it is doing behind the curtains, and I think a lot is in the open here. What happens, but really, what is happening on the device, for example. But I'll save that for later. But thank you, Peter. Honored to you saying that. This is the new kind of experience when you create policies in Intune. So this could be Autopilot. Let's call it ADP. Just not putting any version numbers into this because we don't want to.
V2.
Yeah. Be next. Be next. And then it wants us to create a device group. And this device group, what we usually see is that when we added our device to the Autopilot table, it would create a temporary Entra ID device ID. This is not the case. We will not have that anymore. So this device group will not contain anything in the beginning. So to be able to do that, we'll go into groups and we'll just create a new group. Come on. We'll call that ADP, be next. And then there is one thing that you need to make sure you cover. And where did it go? It goes right here. And that is that we need a owner to be set for that device group, because Intune is going to add that device while provisioning into the device group. So you could see it as when you had Config Manager and you had to join a device to the domain, you had a join domain account. This is kind of that. You would just have Intune service principal to do something on behalf of you to a group. So you can go into the docs there, and then you could look for the app ID for that. I would strongly suggest you take the app ID because it can depend on the name. Someone is calling it confidential client and others are not. So when we add the owner, we simply put in the principal or the app ID of that, and then we are good to go to create that group. Once that's done, it of course needs to create it. What did we call it? Autopilot. Or did I just call it ADP? Yeah, ADP be next. That's good. And then we have the out-of-box experience. We have a single user mode. This means that, pre-provisioning is not supported kiosk in that kind of scenarios. Not right now. It's user-driven. And it is a Azure AD joint, which is Entra ID joint, of course, but that's just an UI thing. A lovely.
It's still funny.
It's still funny, though. Yeah, it's still funny, though. User account type that will toggle on and off if you will be an admin or a standard user account. I think that's funny too. Out-of-box experience, that's normally, the ESP set to 60 minutes. Now it's 30 minutes, and I think Microsoft is trying to put a statement here that the ADP is actually much faster than the old experience of provisioning devices.
And if I've understood this correctly, right, this is basically the sort of from the previous experience, they have combined the sort of deployment profile and the enrollment status page into the same single profile now. So you configure everything related essentially to the provisioning of the device from one profile instead of multiple.
Absolutely. Once that is done, you will be the kind admin to assign up to 10 managed apps, not 11, not 12. Of course, you can do dependencies on your Win32 apps, and then you can have 15 if you like, but you can only select 10 here. So that's also a statement. If you use 100 apps in your modern provisioning, maybe you're doing it wrong, or maybe you just need another provisioning engine.
Maybe you need re-provisioning. I don't know. Perhaps. I sort of get this sort of limitation, right? Because Microsoft obviously wants companies and customers to have a great experience with Autopilot. But I don't like it that they are sort of putting a cap on it on a functional level. I think that goes against anything. It sounds to me small medium business like. I don't like this kind of sort of restrictions that they put in. It doesn't make sense. Sure, yeah, you should definitely maybe rethink your strategy if you have like 35 applications. But what if you have 12 and you really, really need them, or 11? Why should Microsoft decide? I don't think that makes sense, because it could be really, really small applications. And why should I have to reconfigure them in a certain way with dependencies and stuff and chaining it together? It may just sort of overwhelm my existing deployment or assignment strategy that I have for those applications, right? Because then I need to think about, okay, here's how it's going to work when I provision devices. Here's how I'm going to update these devices. Oh, I can't reuse these because they are now tied with dependencies just to chain them together because there is a restriction. Doesn't make sense. I think this is a bad decision on their end. Hopefully they listen to this video and take that feedback. We'll see.
We'll definitely see. One important thing to say here is that it's not enough just to put the app in here. You also need to deploy it or assign it to this group that we created for the device where it will land. So, or you could simply do it to all devices, your choice. It just needs to be assigned to the device. Once that's done, you can do your scope tagging. If you are doing role-based access in Intune, this would be the place to make sure that you do not allow others than the needed people to actually tamper with this configuration. The assignment will be to the group of users that should have assigned this new provisioning profile. So that would be, it could be all users, but that's maybe too big. You could just start with creating a group, put yourself into it, and that would be enough. So for this demo, I'll not going to assign it to a lot of people, but now you can see that everything is configured correctly. If you did not add in the service principal on the owner, you would get a 0 here on the group assignment, and it would be gray, just so you know. You save the policy and everything is good. Now, the only thing is, if you don't kind of validate or have any validators for your device, it would be considered as a personal device. So if you want to test this out on the same group as where you assigned this provisioning or provisioning policy, you would also need to allow personal devices to be joined in the Windows space. So it's not ready baked, definitely not, but we are in a much better state. The real-time monitoring of what happened behind the back is actually really, really good.
But will we get a time that we can make those devices corporate devices?
We will definitely do that. And if we go back, that will be the corporate device identifier, where we'll add in a CSV or enter manually here. And it will not be the long 4K hash of device entry.
Well, I think I read something in the past week about corporate identifiers for device preparation wasn't ready, or was missing something, or there was something about it. I have a really
was something
bad memory.
Yeah, it's definitely not ready, and there are more to it. You can't do this on all Windows devices. You need to be on specific KB article from 23H2 or 22H2, or the public preview of
and only
24.
Windows 11, right?
Yeah, Windows 11.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're still doing Windows 10, you still need to use the previous experience.
Exactly.
With Autopilot. Good stuff.
And you have
Well,
to
I think that
start
covers
thinking
Autopilot.
about a migration.
Oh, sorry, Peter. What were you saying?
I said, and you have to start thinking about a migration before October next year.
Yes, that's certainly. I should not speak on my own behalf on that matter, but maybe we are in that position. I don't know. Anyways, cool. Thank you, Matthias. Great presentation on Autopilot device preparation. And we are still on the Windows track of things. There has been a blog post around an updated experience on the company portal application for Windows, and a few infrastructure updates too. And I was really eager when I noticed that new company portal experience, because I have been a huge sort of advocate of improving that experience. I think it has been lacking too much behind in function in terms of features and functionality, but also UI. It doesn't feel modern anymore. And I made a reference to a person at Microsoft where I said, hey, look at the Windows app, right? The one for Windows 365. That feels modern. That's like a great experience. Just copycat that, turn that into the company portal. I would be super happy. Of course, it's sort of a different backend functionality, but I mean the UI is kind of similar, right? And I was really hoping for that. Fortunately, I was a little bit sort of disappointed with what they have done. I think it's great that they are finally sort of putting some work into making it better, but on some occasions, I think it has been made worse. But Matthias, do you have the blog post that talks about this?
I surely have, but I just want to first highlight how important it is to actually go into your tenant administration and go to the service health and message center. This is where you would be kind of notified if you have anything coming and changing, because it will be based on what you have configured in your tenant and not based on everyone's tenant. So for this first one, there are coming changes to the infrastructure of the company portal. So all users that are using a minimum of the company portal, I don't know anyone doing this not having auto update on the company portal. But before the July of 10th, you need to make sure you're on the minimum version here. Otherwise, company portal won't work for you any longer. So that's kind of the first one. And then there's the next one, the plan of change, that is coming late August. And you can click that link, and that would be sending you directly to the Tech Community blog, where it states how the company portal is going to look like, when stuff is going to change, etc., how it's the look and feel for the new company portal. And yes, this is definitely how it's going to look like. No of the functionality is going to be removed, but we're going to have new functionality going forward. So go read the blog. We'll put it in the comments or in the description as well for the video, so you can go directly to that.
And I just want to say, one of the hopes that I had for this update was basically that it would be faster, right? The sort of interaction, you click install, boom, it starts, right? But it still is, it takes about a minute before the progress bar is even sort of remotely progressing or moving on the screen, right? And
is the status
it's still
now
lagging in
more...
terms of it's shooting up the notifications, and then sometime after the sort of UI is updated. You said, Peter?
I wanted to ask if the status is now more accurate than it used to be.
The sort of installing or downloading.
Yeah, exactly.
My feeling is that it's sort of the same, It's just compressed a lot more. It's basically in its own sort of tile or box on the right side instead of like being top across everything. And Matthias, I think if you scroll down a little bit, there's a view on that, perhaps in here. Isn't there a view when you go into a single app?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Because my general feedback that I sent in around this was you get a little bit of the point if you go down to the devices at the last image, I think it was. There you can see on the left side, right, there's now this enormous box. And this is basically the same look if you go in to click on a single app.
Really?
But device information is basically the description text field, which is really compressed. And on the left side, on any application, you have this sort of default text where it says, by installing this application, you agree that your company can control it and so forth, which is something you can't configure. It's just statically going to be there. And I would really like this sort of view to feel more modern. I mean, honestly, look at the Windows app that those developers and product managers on that one did a really good job, in my opinion. But yeah, I think it's cool that it's getting some love for sure. My sort of OCD or whatever you want to call it is really annoying, because if you look in the top left corner of this image, you can see a small error or arrow. And then you can see that it's really not aligned with this sort of company portal text, and which is not really aligned either with the sort of image and the text. So those kind of things from a UI perspective is annoying me. And I know.
I feel you.
Yeah. One of the new things that they've added, though, is the sort of, if you were to click that sort of what is it, like icon on the top next to the search apps, the text field, that brings you to on the right side you see that sort of circle which would show your avatar or your image in your directory of the user who signed in. If you click there, you basically get to a new page, and on the right side you see your name, email, phone number, and basically those kind of super basic information. And on the left side, there's this enormous box with just your image, your name, and change password. I'm like, why? Can I hide this page, please? Because I don't want a third or fourth or fifth sort of possibility of users getting disoriented because they can change password there. And also, I mean, changing password, right? I mean, if organizations are moving away from passwords, it's really annoying that it basically says change password. Maybe what we should have there instead, like change your security details or something like that, so that it's more generic and common and isn't very specific related to your password. But that's my rant on that. I really, truly, honestly like that this application is getting some love. If you have thoughts about it, absolutely share it with Microsoft. I think now is the time to really try and have this shared so that they can make the changes now, hopefully before they go live with it. Good stuff. And let's move into the next topic on our agenda for today. There's some security baseline updates for Defender, right, Peter? That's coming up.
Yes, there are. Yep. And let me share my screen on that perspective.
It's shared for
so
you.
If we just look at the security base, awesome, thank you. If we look at the security baselines in general, I think during the last update, we mentioned that the security baseline for Windows was getting some love. And this time we can actually say that the Defender for Endpoint security baseline got some love. And the main thing around that is that it's now also integrated within the unified settings that we're using for throughout the settings catalog, which provides us with a much better integration with all the other security profiles that we are deploying, or basically any configuration profile that we're deploying that's based on the settings catalog. Another thing that I personally expected to happen is actually that there would be a better integration when we're looking at these different security baselines in general. So what I mean by that is that we can actually start layering security baselines. And as a starter, the Windows security baseline, and then the Defender for Endpoint security baseline on top of that for some additional functionality. But from that perspective, I got a little bit disappointed because I have deployed both the Windows security baseline and the Defender for Endpoint security baseline, both in default configuration. So I basically didn't change anything. And as you can see right here, it provides us now with a great overview, of course, with all the setting statuses. So we can see which settings succeeded, which failed, but also which are conflicting. And we can also get the information of the different profiles that are conflicting. So as you can see right here, it's actually conflicting with my Windows security baseline, which was kind of disappointing. So if you are actually going to use the Defender for Endpoint security baseline, you have to make sure that you're going to match it with the configuration that you did within the Windows security baseline, because out of the box, they don't completely match with each other, because there are a couple of more settings in here that are conflicting and that are in some case conflicting with the Windows security baseline.
Yeah.
A couple of them are, of course, in my own baselines, but there are more.
Oh, are we lagging perhaps a little bit? I think we are. Sorry, Peter, I was just saying that I think this makes total sense what you're saying, right? Because, I mean, corporations would go out there and definitely if you run Windows and you're managing Windows like this, you would definitely put on the Windows security baselines. And then if you're also a customer who have access to Defender, you would simply just, oh, cool, there's recommendations on Defender, and you would simply just apply that. You wouldn't expect that you would need to have to go and handle conflicts by simply applying these two. They definitely need to merge better together out of the box. But then there's also the case with customers like ourselves, right? We don't use Defender. So some of the pieces of Defender needs to be in the default sort of Windows baseline where you have it out of the box, to at least account for certain Defender-related settings that you may be eligible to depending on your licensing and such. So I kind of get it, but I strongly feel that this needs to be improved, I think.
Yeah, and if I look at how we are deploying, well, basically Defender security baselines until this moment, we actually always started with the Windows security baseline, which is what we still do. And then we created custom configuration profiles or endpoint security profiles to fill the gaps of not using the Defender for Endpoint security baseline, because it created so many conflicts that it wasn't worth the effort of trying to match both of them. But I see a lot more perspective when using this new security baseline, because it gives us a much better overview of what is actually conflicting and where we can tune a little bit. So from that perspective, I do see this as a positive thing. But yeah, I'm still a little bit disappointed that they don't match the two different baselines together. And another thing to keep in mind if we're talking about the Defender for Endpoint security baseline specifically is that it's really aimed to be used at physical devices. So if you are using VMs or you're using VDI, for example, then this security baseline is not tuned in a way that it would perform at the right pace on those type of machines. So this is really focused on physical devices.
Cool.
Yeah. One thing I would like to maybe test next time is actually to put in Copilot for security, or security for Copilot. into the mix and ask it if I am going to assign the Windows baseline and the MDE baseline, what settings do I need to remove from either one?
That's actually a good one. Yeah.
Do you think it would be? Do you think it would work? Honestly,
I honestly don't know.
It would be a really good question. Then we can challenge Copilot also a little bit.
We need to fix this for next round, guys.
Absolutely. Let's continue though with some BitLocker updates that we have had.
Absolutely.
Yes. Do you have your screen ready?
I have to switch screen for that. So yes, so BitLocker and self-service on that. It's not a new thing. We've had it for MBAM for a lot of years in Config Manager. Now we had it for my security info as well. But the new thing here is that you can actually get it from the online company portal. So how do you get to the online company portal? You do that from portal.manage.microsoft.com. And once you log on to that, you won't see a lot of stuff. This is Danish. I'm very sorry. You will recognize all the buttons, though.
You don't have any devices right now. That's what it translates to.
But I do, actually. I do have a lot of devices. And here you can actually see I have 5 devices assigned to this user or associated with this user managed in Intune, right? So if I go to my device, I can then go here to my encryption and I can get my encryption key. That's basically what you are able to do now. So if you have a device that is currently locked, you can go in on the portal with another device and get this recovery key to your BitLocker. And I think that's a nice addition to what we had before. Because what we had before was this aka.ms MySecurityInfo. So what is the difference here? Well, the big difference is in MySecurityInfo, you can also add additional sign-in informations. And that could be dangerous for you as a user if you don't protect this properly, right? So there needs to be better protection on this portal rather than this portal because you don't have that kind of configuration enabled here. So I see this as a very light portal, whereas this is the portal where you would configure MFA, stuff like that, if you're a newcomer to company, et cetera, et cetera. And what happens if I click devices here? Any good guesses, guys?
Can I just put in a note there? I would go all the way to say that the sort of My Security Info or the My Signing portals, that's one of them that you need to protect with more than just MFA. It needs to be phishing resistant authentication methods across the board. Because getting into this place, it could be devastating for your organization, for sure, if attackers would gain access here. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you said you were asking us to guess what happens if you go to devices.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I haven't done that recently, so it's like not a fair question.
it's totally a fair question.
Don't you think?
It's totally a fair question. What happens, guys? If
I think you go to your Azure or your Entra registered devices.
Exactly. So what will then happen if I enrolled a lot of devices and I did not do proper cleanup?
You would see a lot of devices.
Ta-da! Yeah. I get a lot of crap, right? So.
Oh, you said it yourself, Matthias. I was thinking it, but you said it.
No, see, I have 5 devices. They are active. They are enrolled in Intune, right? And now I have this associated devices to Entra ID.
That always seems to be the challenge with the different portals. If they're Entra based, you see it from an Entra perspective, and then if they're Intune based, you see it from an Intune perspective. And I always miss the match from that perspective. Like, what is it that you want to see as an organization on these tabs? that would make a lot more sense. That if you could customize that a little bit, like, okay, I want to see my active managed devices, and that you can actually filter on that.
Yeah, it would be making so much sense if you could basically configure these portals to sort of give the same experience, rather that you were in control. Absolutely.
So I just told you that I have no way of cleaning up stale objects in my Entra portal. There's one last thing I want to show, and that is, of course, you can manage, if you want to allow users to go to your company portal and actually view the recovery key of the BitLocker. But this is not a Intune kind of configuration. Everything around labs and accounts and stuff like that, it's actually Entra. So we have to go to the Entra portal. And if we go to the all devices and we go to the device settings, then we can scroll all the way down here. And what we get is restrict users from recovering BitLocker key on their own devices. If you said yes and you click save up here, after some time, you wouldn't be able to actually see the recovery key. So that's how you will restrict that. If you are very, very against that kind of self-service, I wouldn't be too scared of that, but some are. And
what happens in the web-based company portal? If you click yes there, is it going to hide it also?
Yeah, it's not going to show you the key.
Cool.
I don't think there's any more much to actually tell and show about that. I think it's a good solution. I think this is very welcomed. We should have more self-service. That's in the company portal, of course. And now we can reset. We can get our BitLocker key. We can actually control the status of compliance policy and actually sync only that part to make sure we get compliant. Yeah, I mean, even rename the device, which will not rename anything other than in the company portal itself. So,
absolutely. But I think we should probably just state, even though if we mention that this is a less sort of portal that you should protect it with some sort of second factor, at least MFA for certain, because you don't want to provide access from a remote sense of perspective of an attacker or similar if they have your what's it called, like login session or something. They have stolen your session and can then access this, and they've also already gotten their hands on your physical device, right? Well, there's a lot of hoops that needs to happen for that to be a scenario. But of course, if you're exposing BitLocker keys here, you need to protect it. That's the statement that I want to make for certain. Cool. Thank you, Matthias. Let's continue the new version of the Windows hardware attestation report then instead.
Yay.
In the meantime.
Yeah. So the new attestation report, I had to take a prod environment here for that to actually show some valid data. One thing I've been looking into and looking forward to was actually to get some more information on the device health attestation. And what is device health attestation? That is the validation between your computer and the vendor, so to speak. So when you do compliance signals on, for example, Secure Boot or BitLocker, you require something to happen to protect and make a stronger authentication to that, what you trust in your compliance signal. So you would normally see a certificate joining the TPM, and then you would have some sort of compliance policy that would check against that to have the strong kind of feeling that this is actually worth trusting. So we've had for many years now, we have had the Windows device health attestation status, and that's under the device and monitor. And then we had all this data, right? But what happened when we had hundreds of thousands of devices in here? This would be impossible to go through, right? We don't have any search button. We have a filter, yes, but really, is that what I want? Certainly not. And is this live data? Is this data generated when I needed it? Certainly not. So I could export it, but that would be also a lot of data, and I would like not to export it. I would like to be able to filter this right now, right here, to actually understand why my BitLocker compliance policy is not compliant. So if a device would say, well, for the device or Windows Health attestation, the BitLocker would say no, then I would know that the certificate that needs to join the TPM is not there. It's not valid. You have not completed the onboarding of that check. So that's why you're not getting compliant. There's a much better report today. If we go to reports, we go to device compliance and we go to reports. Then we have the Windows hardware attestation report down here. And this is much more real time. So you can generate data when you want it. I already did that prior to this demo. And what you can do here is exactly what I wanted. I want to filter on BitLocker, for example. I want to know everything that is no, right? Because then I can actually see who is going to be hit by the issues with compliance. And that is to help the users that would actually be hit by this and blocked by our conditional access, which would require our device to be compliant. So as you can see, it has code integrity, secure boot, and it has BitLocker. And that's the three most common compliance policies you would add into a compliance policy. So I really like that. But what do you say, Nikolai? Do you think it's usable?
I think it's great because, like we have said many times, we really like when reporting capabilities as such are moved into this new report framework, where we are given so much more control. To be honest, the sort of monitor state that's just like a first kind of glance, in my opinion. Oh, you just want to, is there something wrong, right? Potentially. But if you need to dig deeper into the data collected, these things with the new reporting framework that came out a few years ago totally makes sense. So I think this is great. Can't wait to not use it because I don't want to find out if there's any problems, of course. Or, well, I don't want to have problems. That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. So, this is beautiful. I think this was really what we needed. So thank you, Microsoft, for actually doing this.
Absolutely. Should we have another go at the optional feature updates, Peter? Are you back with us again? It looks like it.
Yeah, we can always try, guys. Yeah.
Perfect. So
yeah, I hope so.
If you... I can see that you have a few windows on your screen that you should probably minimize before I share it. That's perfect. Thank you. So we are back on the optional feature updates here.
Yes, this is Yes. And I already went to the device overview, specifically Windows devices, because I think that's the easiest way to get to the feature update policies. And now we're going to try to load them again, because this seems to be...
It's looking better so far.
Turning point.
Yes.
Thank you. That's awesome. So the cool thing about this is that, of course, we already could create different feature update profiles for Windows 10 and later. But with the recent updates, we can now also make those specific updates optional. Like before, we could only create a feature and force those updates to eventually install. But now we can actually introduce a stage before that in which we can make the update optional and make it to the user to actually install that specific update. It's still kind of slow on my end if I look at it this way. But here we go. This is basically the configuration that you have. Most of the configuration settings you probably still remember from before, because the biggest change is actually in this section. Before, we always had to configure it as a required update, and now we can also make it an optional update. And purely theoretically, we could already do this by using the Windows Update for Business deployment service, and we would create our own custom profiles by using Graph and PowerShell in a combination. But now we have the functionality actually available within the UI, which gives us as an IT admin or IT pro a lot more flexibility to actually create this specific configuration. And if we look at the user experience, it will also be pretty straightforward, because if we get this specific VM, for example, and we sign into it, and we go to the Windows Update section, then the user will actually just get this little prompt that will tell the user that the new version that's been deployed or assigned as an optional update is now also available for that specific user to download and install. So this gives you a lot more granularity if you want to make a new version of Windows available within your organization. Besides users specifically requesting it with IT to already test it, you can already provide them by using optional update functionality. So I think this is a really great addition and makes it a lot easier to quickly adopt a new version of Windows within your organization, which also helps you with testing, for example, application compatibility and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
So, yeah.
I have a question, since you tested this, Peter. Do you, as the end user, get any notification, like toast notification or anything that this has been made available?
No, that's the only downside, that at this moment I haven't seen any notifications at all around the availability of the update. So it really requires you as IT to have that line of communication already with your end users to actually tell them either via a mail or a message on your a SharePoint or whatever you use for corporate communication, to tell them that the specific new version is available as an optional update and that users can install them if they want to.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to raise a sort of caution or something. I haven't tested this myself, but I have seen people on X or Twitter that have tested this out, where they have made it or created this policy to make it optional available, where it was unintentionally enforced to Windows 11 or that specific version. So it was deployed forcefully instead of being made available. Microsoft is well aware of this, so if you're experiencing this while testing it out, definitely reach out to Microsoft and make them aware of the issue. Even though they already are, it's always better if there's more who report the same thing, then it gets a higher sort of attention, I would say. But definitely, even so, it could. I don't know the specifics of what those people who tested this, how they had their environment configured. Of course, there could be something wrong with some specific setting that's sort of overruling anything else. But just be cautious with this. Test it out in a small group first to make sure that it really works well with your existing configuration. That's just all I wanted to say. But again, I totally agree, Peter. This is awesome. I think it's extremely desired, waited. We've been waiting a long time to be able to do this instead of using Graph, which is a little bit tricky. Awesome, cool. We need to get moving here with a new section for this time, which is going to be, we're going to talk a little bit about iOS and Android. Even though there haven't been too many updates around this, we want to start cover Mac OS and iOS and Android as well in this series, like we said some time back. And the could we say the main sort of news in this service release is the sort of ability to stage Android device for enrollment to sort of reduce the steps required?
Yes, I think that's a fair thing to say. Basically what Microsoft did was they introduced a device staging for Android enterprise devices, and specifically Android enterprise devices with a user interaction. So fully managed devices and corporate-owned devices with a work profile. And the main idea is actually to create a little bit of an experience like you might know from Windows Autopilot pre-provisioning. So as IT or a third party that's providing you with devices, or basically anybody that would provide your users with the devices eventually, they can make sure that before the device is provided to the user, it's actually been prepped already, so the user intervention or interaction is really small. And the thing we can do for that is actually use a enrollment profile, but with the enrollment profile, like how you might have known it from before, we have a new configuration option available. And that configuration option is, well, before you, in this case, you had corporate-owned fully managed, and now you have corporate-owned fully managed via staging. And that's exactly that additional step that you can use to prepare the device for the user. So the configuration is actually not a lot more than this. So you create a profile, you get eventually the enrollment token, and your IT admin or your third party that's doing it for you can use that enrollment token to start the, well, let's call it pre-provisioning of those Android devices. And well, it would have been cool if I could show the experience, but to be quite honest, there is not a whole lot to show actually. Because if you are familiar with the Android Enterprise enrollment, that process is actually still the same. The only real difference is that you don't have to provide any user credentials at all during the staging of the device. So it will go through the whole process until the moment that the user would actually have to provide their credentials. And after that, you can turn off the device and hand it over to the user. And the only thing the user has to do is go to the Intune app and sign in and finish the actual registration of the device. So that's also a little bit where my current worry is if we're looking at this specific functionality, mainly because of two things. One is that the IT admin doesn't really get the green screen that you might know of Windows Autopilot pre-provisioning. So there is no real indication that the device is actually finished with staging. And the other thing is that you have to make sure that the user goes to the Intune portal, to Intune app, to make sure that the user finished the registration of the device. So those two things are the main thing to keep in mind. And if we look at the devices, let's see if I maybe still have one in the staging process. Because the device Intune. So if we look at the Android devices in my tenant, for example, it's ignoring me again. Let's go.
Let's do these recording on a different week. So you have more bandwidth in Holland, Peter, right?
This is terrible.
Oh, that's fun. It's even stopped your sharing. Interesting. Let's just round it there. I think absolutely the staging of that is a big enhancement. It certainly will provide some good benefits of making it easier for end users to enroll. But we also want to cover the another sort of section to round things off, which is something that we call sort of other news or any other sort of important updates. We have done them a few times in the past. And this time, Matthias, you wanted to talk about something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I recently discovered an issue where, we had a encryption policy deployed to our devices, and all of a sudden our users were complaining about non-compliant devices. So kind of they were blocked from getting to any internal resources. And I was like, yeah, we know you have to reboot your device. It's device health attestation, and that's only going to sync while you're rebooting your device. So that was our standard response. But the users said, yeah, well, we rebooted for like 5 times now. It's not working. So, okay, so there is definitely something happening here. So we looked into the encryption policy. We could see, well, it looked like it prior for this. But what I also saw that we had someone that actually had edited the disk encryption policy from within the last 7 days. And what I discovered there was that by running this query on my log analytics, I am exporting my logs to log analytics, so I can actually query on that. I was discovering that someone had actually tampered with that configuration. So I just want to remove all the noise here. Contains, and let's put that into the mix, and we'll get exactly what we need here, right? So I wanted to see what actually happened here. And normally when you edit a policy, it would write patch, right? Patch, and then the policy, that's what it's going to do. But in this case, after that event, it actually created the policy. So what did you say it did? Yes, it created the policy. And then afterwards, I tried again to just edit the policy and do a couple of changes, and it didn't put the create device policy here. So something definitely was going on in the back end. So then we kind of created a case, and all of a sudden we got, in our health portal, we got this message saying, well, if you have edited in your configuration and it was a security BitLocker template version 1, we in Microsoft have had some background update to version 2, and when it tried to migrate it, there were definitely happening some unfortunate stuff where it would tamper with your configuration. In this case, it was someone that edited our policy to exclude a couple of devices. It then created a new policy where it did not have the encrypt silently for the device, so the devices weren't encrypting anymore. So we had to create a complete new BitLocker policy. So I just wanted to tell you that the importance of having something that you can actually see what happens in your environment is crucial. Otherwise, you won't be able to see these kind of stuff.
Couldn't agree more. What a perfect sort of statement to round things off with, I would say. Thank you, Matthias. And also, I think that's it. We have no other news to talk about. So thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Peter. Have a good one. We'll see you all in next month's time.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.